So I finished Zelda Breath of the Wild a little while ago, and I'd have to say this is one of the easiest Zelda games I've ever played. Now, you might see people say it's a very difficult game, and I assume that's because they said it before they got more than an hour into the game. At the very start of the game, it is kind of difficult, not because of anything the enemies really do. It's because most of the enemies can just kill you in one hit, and apparently that's difficulty. Just getting killed, just getting a one-hit kill. Very quickly you'll find that you can get armor or clothes. You can get 3 pieces of armor: head, legs, and chest. And even though the numbers look really tiny, I'm not sure exactly what they mean, but the small numbers apparently mean a whole lot to defense. Because there's enemies that can one-hit kill you pretty easily, but when you get just a small amount of armor, they can barely take any health off. And the easiest parts are the boss battles. There's 4 boss battles outside of the final Ganon boss battle, and all but one is incredibly easy. The only difficult one is one that takes place in the electricity dungeon, we'll call it, and that's only because there's really no indication of what you're supposed to do. I had to look it up, and what you're supposed to do is block the attack that they do. And then for some reason they'll just stand there. I don't know why. They're not stunned or anything. They're just standing there. And then you hit them. But you're going to be hitting their shield. The entire rest of the game, if you hit an enemy's shield with just the one-handed weapon, you're not going to do anything. Because they'll just stand there with their shield up. And you won't be able to get through it. And as far as I know, you won't be able to break it, maybe. The game said that you should use 2-handed weapons to get rid of their shields. Your shields can break. I guess I assume the enemy shields can break, but maybe not, because I haven't sat there wailing on them long enough. But on this boss, if you hit the shield a couple of times, it goes away, and then you can do damage. And then there's a second phase where you throw his little metal poles down, and they're getting hit with lightning. And you're supposed to know that you can pick them up and drag them over to the boss, and then he'll get hit by the lightning. This is despite the fact that he's a lightning boss, so you would think that he wouldn't be hurt by lightning, but apparently he is. And the other 3 bosses are incredibly easy. When you look at the areas where you fight the bosses, like the first one I fought was in Zora's Domain, and of course the boss was in a water temple. I'm calling it a water temple or water dungeon, even though it isn't, because it's easier to say that because then everybody knows what I'm talking about. And he's in the water temple, and he has a watery name, and he's got a little arena, and there's water on the floor, and there's 4 platforms in the water, and you think, okay, I've got to go onto the platforms because he's going to do something with the water. And well, at first, no, you don't, because you can just run across it, and all you have to do is go over there and hit him with your sword or whatever until his health goes down. And then the next phase starts where the water raises up a little bit, so you have to swim, and then you have to stand on the platform. And then he'll throw some stuff at you. It's pretty easy to get around because you have an ice power that raises ice up out of the water, and that'll just block any projectiles that he throws at you. I don't recall if they were ice projectiles he was throwing. If they were, then you can just target those and break them with your ice power. But even with all that, all you really have to do is just go over to him and hit him a whole bunch with your swords. And your clubs, or just shoot him with an arrow. Doesn't really matter, because it does so little damage. It's weird because the lightning boss, he does tons of damage when he hits you. But everybody else, all the other bosses, they do barely any damage. And I did the Zora boss first. See, my thing is because I had a lot more armor. It was not because of that. And I guess he was the only boss that really used the arena, kind of. Like, he didn't use anything in it to attack me. The only thing I did was raise an ice up out of the water, which I probably didn't need to do anyway. There is a air type boss. When I got up there, I saw the fans blowing air up into the air, and I'm like, oh, okay, I've got my little paraglider thing. And so obviously they want me to jump into that, glide up into the air, and then do something up there, like shoot them with arrows. Well, it turns out I didn't need to do that at all. All I had to do was go over to the boss and hit him with my weapon a whole bunch. And then he would do something else. I don't remember what, because it didn't matter, because all I had to do was shoot him with my arrow a whole bunch of times. And then for some reason he came back down and I could hit him with my weapons, with my swords and clubs and whatever, until he died. I don't understand. Like, maybe they were going to make the arena area do something, and then they decided, nah, let's not do that. Let's just have you hit the boss a whole bunch of times. And then the other boss is at Death Mountain. I'd say he's a fire boss. It's really weird because the Death Mountain's, covered in lava, and the thing you go into, it's sitting in lava, but there's not a speck of lava inside of it, which I guess is a good thing. I don't know. And I guess he's supposed to be a fire boss. I guess it's kind of like the wind boss, because the wind boss and the fire boss, they really didn't do anything with that. I guess the fire boss threw out some fireballs, but I'm pretty sure it was out of his weapon. So it was really that he had a fire weapon rather than him being a fire boss. And in the arena, there are these metal circles on the ground, gigantic metal circles on the ground in each corner. I thought, oh, something must be coming out of there. No, they never move. You don't move them during the dungeon. I have no idea what they were there for, because they looked like they were something that were going to open up, and they never did. And the final Ganon boss, super easy. Because if you do all of the dungeons, they take half of his health off right away. If you don't do any of them, the bosses from those dungeons actually show up before the Ganon fight. So there's really no reason not to do them. But all you have to do is wail on them with your swords and your club. Now, I had the Master Sword, so I just wailed on him with my Master Sword for a while. And sometimes he would jump into the air, and it really didn't matter. I mean, I got hurt, but I just walked back over to him and wailed on him some more with my Master Sword. And then another phase started up where he was shooting me with his gun. He's got a gun now. It was a laser gun. And then it turns out, which I didn't know this because the game doesn't tell you, I had to look it up. The laser gun, which other enemies have, which I guess is supposed to be super powerful and super scary, you can just bat it away with your shield. It doesn't matter what kind of shield it is. It could be a wood shield, a metal shield, any shield. If you just parry it, it just goes right back at him. And it's not like it's difficult. The only reason you wouldn't do it is because you wouldn't know that you can do it. And you wouldn't know that you can do it because there's absolutely no indication in the game that you can do it. But what happens is when they shoot their laser thing, there's this massive graphical tell of the stuff going into the laser. And I think you got about a second to hit it at the right time. So there's you got a pretty good window to hit it. I was able to reliably do it, and I usually can't do that kind of parry stuff. I usually can't do that. Not a problem here. It's actually harder to do the parry with your shield on just regular enemies. It is so bizarre. Like, why are the regular enemies so much more difficult than everything else? But anyway, back to the Ganon fight. And so all I had to do is, whenever he shot his laser at me, just knock it back at him with my shield. I had the Hylian shield, which is the best shield in the game. So that's pretty cool. And I just had to do that a whole bunch of times. And then he died. And then the final phase starts up. And he's this gigantic monster thing. And you're on your horse and you're riding around him. And I thought the game was bugged out because he made no attempt to attack me. The only times I ever really saw him attacking is when I was on the opposite side of him. Because he's like this giant monster dog thing. Like humongous. And like I'd be on the other side of him. And then off in the distance I could see him vomiting up his laser out of his mouth. Like, what are you doing? And apparently that was supposed to happen. He's supposed to just stand there and sort of fidget about. And they knew they screwed up because they have Zelda telling you exactly what to do. Because I had no idea what to do until Zelda said, shoot the glowy things. Oh, well, that part, she said it before the glowy things showed up. And I thought that bugged out because the glowy things didn't show up when she told me to shoot them. But then they eventually showed up. And then the final glowy thing you have to shoot is a giant eye that comes out of his forehead. And I'm shooting at it, shooting with my bow and arrow, and nothing's happening. I have no idea why it's not working. And about a minute later, Zelda finally says, oh, you need to use the updraft so you can shoot the eye. I don't know why. Because I was hitting the eye just fine from the ground. But apparently it had to be up in the air for it to count. And that's another place where they knew they screwed up. There's no reason to believe that you had to be up in the air to shoot the eye because it wasn't a problem. They hit it. There's an enemy called a Lionel, which is kind of like a centaur. That enemy has been in most of the Zelda games. It was in the very first game. And it is so difficult. And not because it does anything special. It just has tons of hit points. And it causes tons of damage when it hits you. And not a whole lot you can do when he comes running at you. If you're good at dodging, he'll never be able to hit you. Though I'm not good at dodging at all. I cannot figure it out. No matter how many times I try, no matter how many times I look it up, no matter how many videos I watch, I don't understand how it works. Supposedly, you can hit the jump button and you'll hold your analog stick backwards or sides, or to one of the sides, and you hit the jump button, and if your enemy's swinging, you'll dodge, but that never worked for me. Like, apparently there's a billionth of a second window where it counts. So like in that final boss, if they just had like 20 Lionels, I'd be completely screwed. Everybody would, because it would be impossible to deal with them. Ganon, you suck. Ganon, you some centaurs wandering around in the woods, more powerful than you. And what's really funny is Zelda says at the very end, Zelda says, Link, you figured out how to defeat Ganon. Really? Because the game takes place 100 years after Ganon wins? And I'm like, really? It took, within 100 years, nobody figured out they could just hit him with a sword a whole bunch? And that's all I did. All I did was hit him with a sword. And then I figured out that those laser blasts, oh, you can just parry them away. like, oh, that's incredibly easy. No wonder he was able to take over. Because all those crazy weapons, oh, they were completely useless. He probably knew the same thing as me. Hit things with a sword, parry them away parry away their attacks with a shield. But thankfully he forgot about it. He turned into a giant scorpion spider thing to attack you at the end. Just think if he just had a sword and a shield, you'd be completely screwed. But he decided being a giant scorpion spider thing mattered. There's nothing memorable in this game at all. I couldn't tell you a single thing about anything that happened because I don't know. I just do not remember. And this is a game I just finished. I know it's an open world game. You don't finish open world games, but I finished it because I beat Ganon. I don't remember anything. The sort of dungeons, not memorable. The bosses were not memorable. The world is not memorable. The towns are not memorable. The characters are not memorable. The side quests are not memorable. I guess getting the Master Sword is memorable because you have to go through kind of a maze. You got to go through the Lost Woods to get to it. And you have to have 13 hearts to be able to pick it up without dying. And I guess it's memorable because the area looks different from everywhere else. It's the only place that has tons of bloom all the time. One of the weird things is that to get into the dungeons, you can't just walk into them. You have to do a quest leading up to it. And it's pretty obvious that they had 4 different teams working on those quests because the difficulties is so wildly different between all of them. So with the Zora one, to get in there, I got to go up a mountain and grab some shock arrows from a Lionel. I thought they were saying I had to defeat the Lionel or get him to shoot stuff. No, there was just shock arrows laying around up there. I just had to pick them up. And I jump off, and then one of the Zora swims around with me on his back. And then the dungeon thing throws ice blocks at me, and I use my ice power to knock him out. And then I swim up a waterfall and shoot a shock arrow at the joint on a leg. Do that 4 times, and you win. And then I do the Rito one, and I'm like, oh, okay, this one's probably going to be just as involved, right? So they tell you, go over to this place, talk to this dude. I talk to this dude, he says, okay, to prove that you're worthy, you need to shoot 5 targets in 3 minutes. I'm like, oh, where? Well, it turns out is the targets are like right next to him. What you have to do is you hang off your sailcloth, the paraglide, or whatever you want to call it, and you just shoot the targets leisurely at your own pace. You have 3 minutes, but it took me like 30 seconds. Pretty easy. And then he says, here's 20 arrows, 20 bomb arrows for you. Oh, those jerks at the Zora domain, they made me go get them. This guy just gave them to me. And then we're already up to the place. We're already up to the dungeon. I'm like, what happened? That was so much easier than the Zora one. So much shorter, too. And then all I do is shoot my bomb things at the joints, and they'll let me in. And the next one I did after that was the Lightning Dungeon, which was a giant camel. That one you ride around behind a seal on your shield, and you have to stay within a certain area of another NPC who does not go the right speed, because you're always either going way too slow or way too fast. And then you shoot bomb arrows at the thing's feet. You hit 2 per feet, so you gotta hit each foot twice. So you got 4 feet, 8 bomb arrows. Just kind of easy. Again, she gives you the bomb arrows. You don't have to go get them yourself. It is kind of involved because there's this entire other quest you have to go through. You got to go through this hideout of thieves and get something. For some reason, it's suddenly a stealth mission. I don't know why. Like, I guess they needed a stealth mission because it's a Zelda game? That one was probably the longest one. And then the Goron one, you get some, you think it's going to be difficult because the first, they send out these sentries, and if they see you, they throw molten rocks at you. So the first one you think, oh man, it's going to be like this the whole way. No, you get a metal box. You just bump the metal box into them and they die instantly. Not that difficult. And then you go on to the dungeon. There's something weird about the Death Mountain dungeon. It starts out everything's really dark. I'm like, okay, that's the gimmick for this dungeon. Everything's going to be dark. But then I get the map for the dungeon, and for whatever reason, the top opens up and the darkness goes away. Like, I thought, oh, wouldn't that be cool if... Well, actually not cool. I said, wouldn't that be really annoying if you had to fight the boss in the dark? And they didn't do that. They just said, oh, well, you know what? We're going to make it dark. But we decided against that. So here, we're just open up. You can see everything. Kind of defeated the purpose of it being dark. Because the only reason I took some time in the area, because I thought it was going to continue being dark. If I knew in advance that getting the map would make the darkness go away, I would just run straight to it and it'd be over with like in 10 seconds. So all the shrines, somebody clearly played a Portal before they made the shrines, and they said, I want Portal in my Zelda game, but they couldn't explain why or how. And so they just said, I'll put them in the shrines. And somebody said, well, why? Why are they in the shrines? And say, because. Just because. Like they try to say, oh, yeah, that's a test. I don't know what you're testing. Don't have a clue. They don't bother explaining it. They just say, oh, it's a test. Here's your spirit orb. You need 4 spirit orbs to level up your health or your stamina. Here's a portal type thing. Of course, they all suck because Portal is fun. Physics puzzles in this one are not. I don't know. I saw like people are saying, oh, it's got a 90 and a Metacritic. Why? I guess they all played like the first hour. And I said, okay, that's all we needed to play. It's like everybody who worked on the game, they just did their own thing. And then they just smashed it all together at the end. So one thing you might hear about is the weapon durability, the shield durability, and the bow durability. I'm pretty sure the only reason they have that is so they had an excuse to make you search for these little dudes that give you seeds. And there's 900 of those little dudes. 900. And what they do is those seeds, you can sell them to increase your inventory space for your weapons and your shield. I'm pretty sure that's the only reason they have the durability. And I say that because with limited inventory, that means you can't just pick up lots of weapons. So if they weren't durable, if they just lasted forever, you'd have no reason to increase your inventory space. You just have one weapon of each type, or just your favorite weapon. And if you had lots of inventory space, then it wouldn't matter about the durability. So I'm absolutely positive if somebody said, oh, I put 900 of these dudes around. We need a reason to find them. And then somebody said, okay, let's give them limited inventory, may their weapons break. The end. I'm positive that's what happened. There's no other reason for weapons breaking. I just don't understand why. Some of the enemies, they take forever to kill. Even the best weapons. Like, oh, geez. You're sitting there wailing on them. There's no difficulty because you're sitting there wailing on them. They're stun locked. It's just so bizarre. The Master Sword does not break, but if you use it on when it's not glowing, and it only glows when Ganon's evilness is around, the weapon, you're not allowed to use it for a little while. But you can wail it on things as long as it's glowing. For a little while, I forgot there was combat in the game because I kept doing shrines. And I didn't see any enemies. Like I was running around, didn't see a single enemy. I had no idea where they all went to. And then I started seeing enemies again. Well, that's just me talking about Zelda. Goodbye.